My 8-year-old spent 5 hours baking cupcakes for the family dinner. My mother dumped them in the trash. "Try again when you're older," my sister laughed in her face. I didn't laugh. I got up and said this. Everyone was speechless. It was supposed to be a normal family dinner. Roast meat, loud conversation, a bottle of wine that was probably already half gone before we arrived. Nothing dramatic. Just a Sunday. But that night didn't stay ordinary. That night changed everything. The smell hit before we even stepped into the dining room. Garlic, rosemary, and something faintly burnt that my mother would call perfectly caramelized. Voices carried through the walls, overlapping laughter and the clink of silverware. My husband Evan squeezed my hand. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be," I said. Between us, Chloe clutched the tray she'd refused to let me hold. The foil cover crinkled under her fingers. She'd been up since morning. 3 failed batches, 1 perfect one, frosting them like she was decorating for royalty. She was so proud she could barely stand still. We walked in. Conversation slowed, just for a second. My mother beamed, that practiced hostess smile that could double as a weapon. "There you are." "We thought traffic swallowed you whole." "Almost," I said. The table was full. My parents at the ends like bookends, my sister Monica across from us, her daughter Sienna already halfway through her mashed potatoes. Chloe stood beside me, tray in hand, waiting for someone to notice. "She made dessert," I said, smiling at her. "All by herself." A chorus of polite noises followed. Oh, how sweet, how ambitious, how adorable. The kind of compliments that bounce off the surface and disappear before they hit anything real. Chloe peeled off the foil. The cupcakes looked a little uneven but smelled amazing. Vanilla and sugar and something hopeful. No one moved. Sienna wrinkled her nose. "Are they gluten-free?" I blinked. "No, should they be?" "Mom says I'm not doing gluten this week." Monica smiled, like this was a lifestyle announcement. I looked at Sienna's plate. "That roll you're eating isn't exactly gluten-free." Tight laugh from Monica. "Well, Mom made that." "It's different." My mother nodded quickly, too brightly. "Sweetheart, it's lovely that you tried. But we have so much food already. Let's just set these aside for now, all right?" She lifted the tray before I could answer, careful, gracious, and carried it toward the kitchen. And just like that, the conversation started up again. Louder this time. Brighter. Chloe sat beside me. She folded her napkin into neat little squares and stared at her plate. I told myself to stay calm, to pick my battles, to let this go. But when I stood a few minutes later and said I was grabbing napkins, no one looked up. The kitchen smelled like lemon cleaner. The trash can lid was half open. I saw the frosting first. White smears against the liner, crushed paper cups, a drift of sprinkles like confetti at a funeral. It took me a second to breathe. Another to realize I wasn't alone. Chloe stood in the doorway. Her eyes went straight to the trash, then to me. She didn't speak, didn't cry, just froze. Something inside me twisted. I opened my mouth to say hey, to say it's okay, but she'd already turned away, walking back down the hall on quiet feet. When I returned, she was sitting perfectly still, her fork untouched, her face blank in that way only kids can manage when they're trying not to cry. Monica was talking again, something about kids needing higher standards. My mother nodded like she was in agreement with a divine truth. Every word scraped against my chest. Chloe's hands were trembling under the table. I could feel it through the wood. No one else noticed? Or maybe they did and pretended not to. I looked straight at my sister. "Monica," I said lightly, You sure you don't want to try one before they're gone? Her fork paused midair. For a split second, her eyes flicked toward the kitchen. Just once. Just enough. Then she smiled. Too bright. I think I've had enough sugar for the year. She'll get better when she's older. The laugh that followed was thin, nervous. Around the table, everyone went back to pretending nothing had happened. And that's when it hit me. The lie was the family's real dessert. Chloe picked up her napkin and pressed it to her mouth, pretending to wipe something away. But her hand stayed there too long, shaking. When she lowered it, her face was dry. Her eyes weren't. And that's when the room went from loud to unbearable. That's when something in me shifted. Quietly, like a gear locking into place. I picked up my glass. My voice came out steady. Too steady. I want to make a toast, I said. Every fork froze. Every voice stopped mid-word. To the last time you see us again. The silence afterward had weight, the kind you could feel pressing down on your skin. Evan looked at me, startled. Jody, we're leaving, I said. He stared like I was speaking another language, but he stood anyway. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. Chloe stood too, slipping her hand into mine without looking up. My mother's face went pale. My father looked confused. Monica just stared, mouth slightly open, as if waiting for a punchline that never came. We walked out. Down the hall with the framed family photos, the perfect smiles, the vacations, the pretend harmony. All lies, really. Just snapshots that skipped the truth. The front door closed behind us. Not a slam, just a soft, final click. Outside, the air was cold and clean and sharp enough to taste. Chloe climbed into the back seat. Evan followed, silent. I started the car. My hands were shaking. Just a little. Chloe stared straight ahead. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her silence filled the car like sound does in a church. Complete. Echoing. And somewhere between that house and the first stoplight, I knew something had broken in our family. Something that wouldn't get fixed. Not this time. If you'd asked my mother, she'd have said our family didn't do unfairness. We had standards, which in our house meant if you weren't perfect, you were wrong. I was the firstborn, 2 years older than Monica, which made me the family prototype. The rule was clear. If I did something well, it was expected. If Monica did the same thing, it was wonderful. She learned early that her mistakes were allowed to be cute. Mine were personal disappointments. Mom's favorite saying was, if it's worth doing properly. It sounded like wisdom. It felt like surveillance. Once, in 4th grade, I spent 2 hours on a math worksheet. One tiny eraser mark in the corner. She looked at it, sighed, and said, "You can't hand it in like that." Start over, I did. Then I cried on the second copy because the paper tore where I'd pressed too hard. She handed me a new sheet without a word. That's how you learn endurance. One ruined homework page at a time. If a towel hung slightly uneven, she'd walk past and say, "Do it again until it's right." If a dish wasn't rinsed perfectly, sloppy work reflects sloppy thinking. Dad would clear his throat like he might intervene, but didn't. His silence counted as agreement. In that house, quiet meant approval. That pattern settled over us like wallpaper, so ordinary you stopped noticing it. Monica's efforts were met with patience, mine with correction. When she forgot a step, Mom smiled and said, "She's still little." When I forgot, it was, "You know better." And when chores went sideways, the solution was always the same. "Jody, you're the older one." Fix it for her. So I did. I became the family's safety net before I was old enough to understand what that cost. Praise was rationed. Monica's smallest triumphs were celebrated. Mine were obligations already assumed. Even as a child, I told myself it was fair. Older meant more responsibility. It took years to realize it really meant someone has to hold the line, and it won't be us. By our teens, the divide had hardened. If Monica finished a project neatly, Mom called it wonderful. If I finished mine, she found one edge to trim, one detail to redo. And my father, steady, kind, but absent in all the moments that mattered, let the imbalance stand. I didn't fight it. You learn not to. You convince yourself that striving earns peace, that excellence guarantees belonging. Then came adulthood, proof that training sticks. Monica married early and had Sienna. 3 years later, I had Chloe. Different towns, same hierarchy. Whenever we visited, I saw the old script replayed. Sienna's every drawing was museum-worthy. Chloe's efforts came with gentle notes. Be polite, dear. Careful now. Do it properly. At first I thought it was habit, the kind of harmless over-attention grandparents give. Then I noticed the pattern was reversed. Sienna was older, yet Chloe was the one corrected, measured, reshaped. If it had truly been about age or teaching, it would have gone the other way. That was the moment the logic fell apart. It was never about guidance. It was about control, the quiet kind, delivered with a smile and perfect diction. Watching Chloe fold in on herself after each small suggestion was like seeing a photograph fade while you were still holding it. She'd start lively, confident, then retreat by degrees until she was all apology. And every time, my mother looked pleased, as if she'd restored order. By then, I was a working adult, careful, solvent, the one who had it together. Success didn't free me, it just gave my family new ways to depend on me. Every month I transferred money toward my parents' mortgage, just while they caught up. If Monica needed help, the call came through Mom. You know she's doing her best, dear. And I'd send more because that's what good daughters do. The unspoken exchange was simple. My stability bought my place at the table. Every payment said, "We're proud of you, as long as you keep paying for pride." When holidays came, I bought the roast, the wine, the gifts, all under the heading of high standards. It took me years to hear what those words really meant. Our way or wrong. After the dinner with the cupcakes, all of it replayed. The homework, the towels, the careful corrections delivered as kindness. The lines hadn't changed, only the audience. It's lovely that you tried. We just want to keep everyone safe. Better luck next time. They used to say those things to me. Now they were saying them to Chloe. And suddenly I understood. It had never been about effort or love or even family. It was about keeping someone slightly smaller so they could stay slightly taller. For decades I'd called it high standards, but watching my daughter sit there with her hands folded tight, I saw it clearly. It was just control with manners, and I was finished mistaking it for love. That night, after we left my parents' house, I didn't cry. I didn't yell either. I just sat at my desk with my hands still shaking and the taste of that dinner still in my throat. The house felt heavy, like it does after a thunderstorm, quiet, but charged. Evan was in the kitchen, rinsing plates that no one had really eaten from. Upstairs, Chloe's door was closed. I turned on the computer. The screen lit the room in a pale hospital blue. One by one, I opened every tab that tied me to them. The automatic mortgage transfer. The family fund. The quiet little payments that had been running in the background of my life like white noise. Click. Cancel. Confirm. Each confirmation ping felt like a nail being hammered into place. Final. Irreversible. Evan came in, towel over his shoulder. He watched the screen for a moment. "What are you doing?" "Maintenance," I said. "Just shutting off a few things." He frowned. "Maybe give it a few days." "You were upset. You didn't mean that thing about never seeing them again." I kept my eyes on the monitor. "I meant every word." He didn't argue, which told me he believed me. That scared him more than anger would have. The next morning, I braced for fallout, for tears, confusion, regret. Instead, I found Chloe in the hallway, dressed, hair brushed, standing very still. She walked up, wrapped her arms around me, and whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" "For saying something." For leaving, I didn't trust my voice enough to answer. We sat on the couch. Sunlight sliced through the blinds in thin gold bars. "Your cupcakes were great," I said finally. "There was nothing wrong with them." She nodded, tears slipping down her face. This time they looked like release, not shame. "You don't have to be perfect to be proud," I told her. She leaned against me. "Can we just stay home next time?" "Yeah," I said. "We can." For the first time in years, the house felt warm. Not big, not bright, just safe. By Tuesday, the calls started. I didn't answer any of them. Blocked numbers filled my screen like weeds. Mom, Monica, unknown, unknown again. Each one went silent on its own. Then a new number appeared, one I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. "Finally," Mom snapped. "Do you have any idea how childish you're being?" I said nothing. "We were trying to educate her," she continued. "That's what parents do." "You've humiliated this family. Throwing away what an 8-year-old made isn't education," I said quietly. "It's cruelty." "Cruelty?" "She'll survive. You survived, didn't you? It made you successful." "You're welcome. She spent 5 hours baking those," I said. "And you threw them away because they weren't up to standard." "I won't let her think that's normal." Mom's voice sharpened. "So holding a child to standards is abuse now? That's parenting." "No," I said. "That's control. And I'm done." Before she could reply, I ended the call. My hand was steady. My pulse wasn't. 2 days later, the phone rang again. Dad this time. I hadn't blocked him. I didn't think I'd need to. His tone was gentle, careful, the way people speak to a fuse. "Your mother's very upset," he began. "You should call her, smooth things over." "What did you do to her?" I almost laughed. "I told her the truth. She's just trying to help. You know how she is." "Yeah," I said. "I do." There was a pause. Then, as if casually, "By the way, we noticed the mortgage payment didn't come in this month." "That's right. I understand if you don't want to for a bit, but could you keep it up for now?" "We're low on cash. Once things settle, we'll take it back over." "No," I said. "I'm not your bank." He sighed, disappointed but unsurprised. "You wouldn't have this good job if we hadn't pushed you." "We taught you discipline. That's why you can help us now." "I'm not successful because of you," I said. "I'm successful despite you. I survived it." "That's the difference." He went quiet. Then softly, "We did our best. We made you who you are. This is how you thank us?" "I'm not thanking you," I said. "I'm breaking the pattern." I ended the call. The silence afterward wasn't peaceful. It was cavernous. Still, I could breathe in it. Days passed. No more calls, no more texts. No more quiet withdrawals from my account. The house felt different, bare, like someone had finally opened a window. On Saturday, I found Chloe in the kitchen with a mixing bowl and a cloud of flour already hanging in the air. "What are you making?" I asked. "Pancakes." A minute later, the smell of butter filled the room. She flipped one too soon, and it burned. She made a face. "Ugh." "I'll redo it." The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them. "You can redo—" Then I caught myself. "No," I said. "It's good enough." She looked at me, surprised, then grinned. "Good enough's my favorite flavor." I laughed. It sounded strange in my own kitchen. She piled the pancakes on a plate, humming off key. Evan came in, hair still messy from sleep. "You two seem happy," he said, sliding into a chair. "Maybe we are," I said. We ate together at the table that, for once, didn't feel like a test. That night I sat on the porch, coffee gone cold beside me. The air was clear, the kind of quiet that used to make me uneasy. Evan joined me, no words, just a hand on mine. I thought about my parents, about control dressed as care, about the way silence had always meant danger in that house. Now it sounded different. Now it sounded like safety. Back then, I thought it was peace. I didn't know it was just the quiet before the storm. A week later, I checked my bank account. There it was, sitting at the top like a bad joke. A transfer of $12,000 to Janet and Robert Bennett. No typo, no accident. Just gone. I didn't shout. I didn't even swear. I just stared at the number until the screen blurred and thought, of course you did. Years ago, when Chloe was a baby and I was too exhausted to argue about paperwork, I'd given them power of attorney just in case. Apparently, in case had finally arrived. I called. Dad picked up on the second ring, calm as a cat in sunlight. "Honey, don't make a fuss." We only moved what we needed, the mortgage, a few repairs. We're your parents. "You moved $12,000 out of my account," I said. He sighed, patient and weary, the tone of a man explaining math to a child. "You've always helped before." "Stop being dramatic. Not like this." There was a pause, a faint shuffle, and then Mom's voice slid in, sweet as always. "It's only money, sweetheart. We just wanted things handled properly. You know we love you, that word, properly, hit like déjà vu." "You took my money without asking," I said. "That isn't love." Dad's voice dropped half an octave. "Watch your tone." "I have," I said. "My whole life." Then I hung up. The quiet afterward was the kind that hums in your bones. By afternoon, the family network had activated. Aunt Paula texted, "Your parents are heartbroken." Uncle Ron followed with, "They said you cut them off when they're struggling with the roof." And Monica, ever the poet, posted, "Some people forget who taught them everything." No mention of the money, of course, just the usual performance. Selective sympathy, open curtain. I didn't reply. I screenshotted everything, saved the bank statement, closed the laptop. If they wanted an audience, they could find another one. I'd stopped auditioning. 2 days later, I sat across from Carla Nguyen, my lawyer. Her office smelled like burnt coffee and new paper. "They used an expired power of attorney," she said, flipping through my documents. "That's unauthorized." "I'll send a demand letter," I nodded. "Will that fix it?" "It'll make them notice it's not their money," she said. At her suggestion, I filed a police report. Symbolic, really. The officer behind the desk looked like he'd seen this scene too many times already. I gave him the statement. He stamped it with a bored thunk. Still, the sound felt like punctuation. When I left the station, I wasn't shaking anymore, just tired. The kind of tired that comes after finally saying enough. 3 days later, their lawyer wrote back. Apparently, it was all a misunderstanding. They returned $6,000 immediately and promised to repay the rest over the next year. A misunderstanding that lasted exactly until someone used the word unauthorized. The money appeared in my account like a confession. And then the gossip started to turn. Extended family suddenly remembered I'd never been emotional without a reason. The perfect parents were now quietly repaying their own daughter. When that first repayment landed, I stared at it longer than I meant to. Relief came first, then guilt, then something else, something close to peace, though I didn't trust it yet. That night my phone rang. Monica. "You made them miserable," she snapped. "How could you drag the police into this?" "You could have just helped. So could you," I said. There was a silence long enough for both of us to realize the conversation was over. Then the click. That was our most productive talk in years. Weeks passed. The house went still. No calls, no transfers, no quiet debts hiding in the background. Just space. Chloe filled it easily. She hummed while she drew. She laughed louder. She stopped checking my face for permission before smiling. One afternoon she dropped a cup, watched it shatter, and waited. I said, "It's fine. We'll sweep it up." She blinked, then grinned. "That's it?" "That's it." The look on her face, pure disbelief, hurt worse than any of the old arguments. Evan walked in, leaned against the doorway, and watched us. "You two are getting dangerous," he said. "Reckless," I said. "We might even enjoy ourselves." He smiled, but his eyes softened. "You look lighter." Maybe I am. Not happy, just unburdened. Like setting down something I didn't know I was carrying. It's been 6 months. I haven't spoken to my parents since the repayments ended. Word is they sold the house in spring. Couldn't keep the mortgage without my help. They bought a smaller place 3 hours away, cheaper, quieter, convenient for excuses. Monica and Sienna still visit sometimes, but not often. It's a long drive, and apparently everyone's busy. A few relatives have cooled off with them too. Turns out I wasn't the only one they leaned on too hard. I'd been sending them $800 a month for almost 10 years. Mortgage, emergencies, whatever the crisis of the week was. Nearly $100,000 disguised as duty. Now that money buys plane tickets, weekends away, and Chloe's art classes. My finances are finally mine, and so is my peace. Chloe's thriving. Evan's happy. The silence from my parents isn't loss anymore. It's freedom with better lighting. So what do you think? Did I go too far, or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.